Should be catching viewers' attention. Is real estate SHTF crap hitting the fan? In other words, we've got a lot of things going on, and I'm joined by Randy Dick of Eximus and Real Estate here in the beautiful Fraser Valley, a veteran realtor and real estate investor, longtime trusted partner of the Real Estate Investment Network. Randy, stuff going on, dude.
Hey, there is a lot of stuff going on, including some beautiful weather here on the West Coast. The sun's coming out.
It is finally.
Let's go.
It's been the wet coast in classic form for the past couple of days.
Yes.
So let's get to work and talk about, and listen, folks, we got no solution. So for those of you watching, I'm going to be in Calgary this Thursday, March 27th. We're kicking off 6:30 p.m. We got a lot of ground to cover. We've got a lot of content. Live event. You have to register. There is limited space. Make sure you get registered. And here's a couple things we're going to be talking about. Randy and I'll go through it. Again, it's just a discussion because this is all kind of happening quite quickly, and it's hitting us, and we're sharing it with all the real estate investors out there. And Randy, let's start with your area of expertise which is what's going on in the realtor space and some recent changes from the National Realtors Association, where they're changing the dance step a little bit, or a lot.
Well, they are changing it a lot. For all of those that don't live in the real estate world and don't hear about all the things that are going on, there's this thing called National Association of Realtors. This is U.S. side. We have CREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, so the similar organizations. But down in the United States, there's a class action lawsuit that was put out, this a couple of years ago already. And what it is that some of the sellers were feeling that they weren't being represented fairly, correctly, and put into a compromised position by paying the buyer's agent's commission. And this is the way it's been for years and years and years, where you list a home and there's a cooperating commission that is payable to the buyer's agent. And that's just the way it's always been. However, a few sellers thought that this was not fair and they weren't being represented. And why would they pay the buyer's agent the commission? So they began a class action lawsuit. Well, lo and behold, a judge ruled on it a week or so ago and said, yes, this is actually not the right way to do business. It's not fair. And so there's a $420 million settlement in place. It needs to be ratified yet, but if that's the case, we're going to forever see the way commissions are paid. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think, Patrick?
Well, I don't know. I guess, I'm looking at it from first thing that pops into my mind, because I did see some of these conversations going on, is that some realtors have already got a workaround. So what the buyer's contract says versus what the seller's contract says, they negate each other. And because I'm not in that space that you are, I don't know if I have an opinion of it. I think it will cause, would it not result in better, I don't know, what's the word? Better negotiation?
I really believe this is actually a good thing. Whenever there's changes, we always light our hair on fire. Somebody lights their hair on fire, and it's like, oh, it's changing. Nobody likes change. But, change can also, I shouldn't say awesome, but also bring positive change. And in this case, I think it's really, really good for both parties. That would be the buyer and the seller. And so in this case, the seller now knows that he or she or they are only responsible to pay the listing agent's fees. But now the buyer is saying, this isn't just anybody that can help, me get through a front door of an investment property or a property. I now need to really understand what the buyer's agent is about. What's the value proposition that this agent's going to give me, because I'm now responsible to possibly pay the fees of the buyer's agent. And so now there's going to be an agreement between the seller and the seller's agent and the buyer and a buyer's agent. So now the value proposition of the buyer's agent needs to be so much stronger and bring significant value to the actual buyer. So I think this is a really, really good thing, especially for investors that are looking for, an invested minded agent, somebody that understands investments and how to handle them. And so here's your way to really pick the best of the best and know you've got the best of the best under contract.
So do you think this is what's going to happen with Korea? And I don't know why I'm getting an echo here, so this is annoying. So,
well, while you're playing with your buttons there, I do think that this is going to be something that will come north of the border. And I would say if it gets ratified, which I really believe it will stateside, I think we'll have much of the same here within less than 3 years.
They're already talking about it here.
Yeah. And in fact, if you're a real estate investor, I would already start looking at it from the perspective that this will happen and that you should really start thinking about who is the best agent to represent you. I know many investors already do that, but now to have it, I guess, more direct, clear, and have it in writing with an agreement saying, this agent is going to provide me with this, this, and that in order for me to secure the next property. I just think it's a really wise move on behalf of the investor, as well as I think it's a really wise move on a savvy, strong agent that can represent buyers and investors.
So when you look at it from your perspective, Randy, if you're giving somebody guidance, an investor planning ahead, what would you be telling them?
Great question. I would say, well, like always, you should be interviewing agents, and not just one or two, but numerous agents, but you should also be getting a referral from somebody that has worked in the space of investing, that has had good success in investing and can give you, some of maybe a good referral to an agent, but also maybe help you understand what are the questions you should be asking that agent, then meet with them. If they can provide you with the answers to those questions, you feel that there's a high level of trust and that would be, some value for you to work with this agent, then you should actually put an agreement together, a buyer's agreement together with the agent. And the two of you have now an agreement. There's an easy way to exit that agreement if you'd like, have a quick release out of that agreement if it's just not working in your favor. But once you've signed an agreement, I think the agent that is working on your behalf has a more secure understanding of what he or she is to deliver to you, the investor, as well.
So where do we go with this? All of these changes, there's so many things that are risking shutting us down, as investors. And, we're positioning this as probably a good thing, a negotiation thing. So, people, I guess the big thing here in this particular discussion is to actually pay attention. That's the biggest issue here. Would you say, Randy?
Yes, definitely pay attention. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. This one is kind of a big one. We don't have a ton of information around it yet, which is to say that OSFI has changed the rules again. And now that is going to cause a couple of different problems, not the least of which is that as if mortgages for investors weren't already a bit of a challenge, they're just getting more challenging. And that is that, what did they limit? Let me just pull it up here quickly. I had it and then I lost it, but I'll give you the exact kind of wording. Let me see if I can grab it here. I just want to make sure I'm nothing like doing this in real time, Randy.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, again, this is another government rule regulation change that is coming, and they just keep coming almost, week after week, month after month of changes happening to how and I say we, capitalists are trying to make it work in the real world. And, I'm a capitalist. I like social programs too, but I want to be living in a world where my hard work, my money I can put to work and make good things happen for society. I think that's a good social program personally. But there's just so many changes coming at us that it's making it really, really difficult to, I guess, feel good about where our government's taking us and making us.
It is a concern, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So OSFI says the new portfolio test is intended to prevent the buildup of highly leveraged loans during low interest rate periods. I don't know that we're there. The regulators are pretty concerned about loans that are more than 4.5 times borrower income because they raise the probability of borrower's default and increase a lender's potential default. So all to say that now they're limiting the number of properties you can, or the property that you can own, to 4.5 times what the borrower's income is. So this is really going to drive people into a different space. So ultimately, we'll get into this. So by the way, folks, for those of you listening, Calgary Thursday, Keith Huthe is going to be speaking specifically to this topic. And ultimately, what it does is it's going to do a couple things. On one side of it, it's going to make it more difficult to get financing for those properties that we like to buy, duplex, triplex, so anything considered residential, which is going to force some into the multifamily space, commercial loans. And so we have to be really kind of mindful of setting ourselves up and being aware. So show up on Thursday for sure. Keith's going to be speaking to this. And I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because it's a pretty new initiative. Not everybody is aware that this OSFI change is happening. It's going to be interesting to see how the banks take it on, by the way. Not all banks will adopt it in the way maybe OSFI intends it or is presenting it, because that's how banks operate. But that is a very good chance that it will still have an impact. So especially the 5 big banks, they're going to add their nuances, do what the 5 big banks do when it comes to lending. But in an already very challenging lending environment, this is not making it easy. Now, what is that going to do? From an investor point of view, you'd say, okay, got it. But it's going to limit rental housing. Now, from an investor point of view, I'm going, okay, well, that opens the door of opportunity. On just a social, political view, the last thing we need is less rental housing. And yet this is what's going to choke it down.
Yeah.
And so there's some concerns there. Any thoughts or comments on that, Randy?
When there's great complexity, the question is, how do we simplify things? And anybody that can help simplify complex things, and this is making it more complex again, is going to be in such a wonderful place. So do I have the solution? Do I have an answer today? No. But I think if we can work our way around what every new government rule and regulation is, we're going to certainly be way ahead of everybody else. So what is the solution? What is the answer here? What is our workaround? Well, I think it's probably getting into more multifamily, which is also a struggle. Potentially, there's other ways to invest your hard-earned money in real estate other than actually going out and buying a property, a duplex, a single family home, a condo, whatever. There are some other options, which we talked about last fall as we presented how to move your money into developments and working with developers. But yeah, it's just getting more and more challenging. And I don't know if I've got a solution. We're here to be problem solvers, and when we solve people's problems, they win and we win. But sometimes it's a bit of a challenge.
Well, now here's how I looked at this particular Facebook Live. First off, again, I'm pushing people in Alberta to the Calgary meeting at the Weston Airport, March 27th. We're going to be covering a lot of this. We don't have solutions because this is very early in the whole conversation. And so this is, from my point of view, within REIN and who you are, who I am, as leaders who have been in this industry for as many years as we have, you need a heads up in order to stay ahead of the crowd, if you will. You need to pay attention. And these are the things that catch people off guard while they're busy doing what they're doing and busy doing their lives as an investor. You have to know these things in behind the scenes so that you can make decisions, so that you can either recreate your thesis, refine it, and then make different decisions. That's how I look at it. So today we don't have solutions, but we do have hey folks, heads up, there's stuff coming down the pipe, and you better pay attention to what it is, because I think it can have a pretty profound impact, and it may not be good news, but I love what you said, and that is, as entrepreneurs, as capitalists, we look at the problems and we become solution providers. We actually solve problems. That is actually where innovation comes from. That's where growth comes from. It takes the tire kickers out of the market. It does all those things, right?
And this is why you need to be part of RAIN, because this is a community where people come together, and the more minds that you have working at finding the solution, the quicker, the easier, the better the solution appears and is presented. And so that is why you need to be part of this community of RAIN. And this is why I'm part of the community of RAIN, because I don't always have the answer, but I can bring in my knowledge, my expertise, and then it gets loaded on somebody else's expertise and knowledge, and again and again, and pretty soon we've got the great solution that we're all looking for. Power of proximity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a final conversation that I'm going to be spending a lot of time paying attention to and unpacking, and that is the shift in immigration. So I started writing a blog around it, so I'll just give you some notes around it. And that is, Mark Miller, who's our immigration minister federal, has announced that the Liberal government will set targets for non-permanent residents and is looking to shrink temporary residentship of Canada's population over the next 3 years. Now, here's where we got to get into the weeds just a little bit, and a heads up to everybody. So Miller said temporary residents made up 6.2% of Canada's population in 2023, which was about 40,000. And the government is working to reduce that share to 5% by 2027. So if you look at it on the surface, so that would mean a decrease in temporary residents population by roughly 19%. So when you start to extrapolate the numbers, okay, so the Canadian population, when you look at what it's growing up 3.2% over the past year, which is the highest in 70 years, which is 1.2 million people in the past 12 months.
Wow.
If we extrapolate and go through and do all the math, here's what it really means without getting into the whole weeds of it on a live like this. An outright decline of 440,000 non-permanent residents, and that's assuming that the permanent resident targets remain the same. So in other words, our population rate would go from 3.2%, which was the highest in 70 years, to 0.08%, a drop of about 1.2 million people. Now, here's the primary insight to all of that, Randy. There's a lot of rental inventory coming on in multifamily space, especially. And so we've got tougher mortgages, which means less rental housing. Got it. But then we've got decrease in non-permanent resident, which are pretty much all renters. And that's coming off the market.
Yeah.
So the heads up in all of this is that if you're an investor, depending where you are, depending population growth and what that non-permanent resident growth is, you could have an actual oversupply of rental housing in the next 18 months. So Good. So,
Well,
now, what does that mean? We're going to talk about that because, of course, these are things that happen, and you got to plan for it.
It's an interesting storm that could come. So supply, which we've never had. So more supply, oversupply that we've never had. Interest rates that have pushed a lot of people to hanging on because their monthly nut has just gone crazy. And so now you've got oversupply, which means rents will come down, which means some of those units that were just making it because they had higher rents because there was a shortage of inventory to rent now could be vacant and have months of vacancy. I don't know. It could be an interesting storm. And you're right. We've been building and building and building because we see this massive immigration model working our way. And now they pivot and change it. I'm so frustrated, Patrick, with the decisions coming out of Victoria and Ottawa. It just every time they speak, they work against the people, the hardest working people out there. It seems like
It's mind blowing.
Yeah,
and just when we look at the building, which we talked about, so it doesn't matter what province you're in. The single family detached building is on a decline.
Yeah.
Significant in some provinces. Multifamily has spiked parabolic.
Yeah.
And that's because they threw so much money. CMHC said, let's get it. And I get it. They want to build apartment buildings, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Multifamily, large, got it. But now you're cutting off supply. You're cutting off the demand side of it. You've increased supply. And I mean, when I was saying cutting off supply, I mean supply of clients. So the demand side of it, you're removing the demand side of it, yet you've got CMHC funding billions of dollars for multifamily projects.
It's really interesting how they work against themselves even, eh? They can't even see that.
Yeah, I can get very sideways when it comes to politics, as many listeners know. Randy, any final wise words of wisdom?
Well, spring's around the corner. Life looks better when the sun shines, and spring is here. And be mindful of the community that you're in. And I'm not even just talking rain. I'm just talking. Be mindful of the people that you hang with and how they're bringing solutions rather than finding ways not to make it work. And rain is the perfect home for you as an investor. There's just so much value here to be part of this community. And so I just encourage people to really, if you've been away for a while, come back. The community is here for you, as well as you're going to learn a lot and you're going to find solutions. And life is just better when you're in community.
Well, here's one of the reasons that we don't sell real estate is because we're just got to give an unbiased view. Here's what's going on. I still believe real estate is a huge store of value. Given the geoeconomic, political stuff that's going on today, you need to have that store of value, and real estate is that. And so this is, okay, here's the challenges. Do you know of them? Don't be blind about it. If you're investing and you're investing following a system, treating it like a business, this is just one of those things that faces. If you're not paying attention, you're going to hear a lot of stories about how this landed not in a good way for many. So,
yeah. And you made a really good point, Patrick, about rain isn't about selling property. I think right now, if you're part of organizations or a part of a community of investors that had a lot of from the stage selling property, that's a lot of their mandate of how they serve their clients or serve their members. And I think that would be a message that would be not coming across as clear and as truthful as what you're sharing with us today, Patrick.
Yeah. And so thanks for that, Randy. And thanks everybody for listening. I think that, out of this all, for those of you who are in Alberta, near Calgary, be there Thursday night. We're going to be talking about a lot of these things, and we'll get through it all together as a community, as a culture of collaboration. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Be the first set of headwinds we faced. Thanks, Randy.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick.